Hello, I'm Pastor Weston Walker with Grace and Mercy Lutheran Church in Hermiston, Oregon, welcoming you back to our series on Luther's Small Catechism. We're in the section on the Sacrament of the Altar. Yesterday we looked at the basic points that Luther makes in the Small Catechism about communion. Today we'll look at some more specific details. Yesterday we talked about the most important aspect, and that is what is the nature of this meal, this feast. And in this we receive the true body and blood of our Lord Jesus. Jesus is truly present in communion. And that's the most important thing for Lutherans in this. Lutherans do not see the Lord's Supper as merely a remembrance, a memorial, something we think about. But we see the Lord's Supper as a special time when Jesus is particularly present to his people. In what manner do we take of communion? Well, there are various traditions. Do we have bread or do we have wafers? Do we have wine or do we have grape juice? Do we have one cup or little cups? Is it okay to take in one kind, or must we take in two kinds, as in just the bread or the bread and the wine? And now in the age of COVID-19 and our extra careful procedures on trying not to pass virus to one another, what will that lead us to do in terms of the manner in which we celebrate communion? Another question is, how often should communion be celebrated? Luther is very clear. It should be regular. It should be every Sunday. It should be all the time in Luther's way. We see in the early church, even hints of it in the New Testament, clearly in the earliest church writings, that Christians celebrated communion the first Sunday, every Sunday, the first day of the week, the Lord's Day, the day of resurrection. And the central feature of the Christian meeting was to share this communion meal. For questions regarding this, I understand our more recent Lutheran history was not to take of communion as regularly as we do now. I would encourage you, if you have questions or interest in this, to Google the use and means of grace. And if you put ELCA with it, you'll find the document that is the current thinking among ELCA Lutherans on what communion is and why we do it and how we do it and when we should do it. And there's much more in that document. At what age should someone start taking communion? Traditionally, it had been after confirmation. Then it was changed to after some sort of formal instruction, like a first communion class. Even more popular or useful today is after a period of instruction at home with children. At what age should one take communion? When we recognize the nature of a sacrament, that it is God active in the sacrament, not so much what we are doing, that helps us see that taking communion appropriately is not so dependent on me doing something right. It is dependent on me accepting God's goodness in my life. And then we have this period of our social isolation when we are not meeting together. And I find it a great loss that we've not been able to continue having our regular communion services. I do believe that Jesus is still present. And I believe that our desire to receive communion is good and probably aids our experiencing Jesus even in this time. Luther had serious problems with people who did not seek the sacrament, those who avoided it, those who did not take the sacrament. He saw that as a sign of a serious spiritual issue. And one other issue that he's very clear about in the Small Catechism is the question of what is required to take of the sacrament worthily. And his focus is on believing the words given for you and shed for you for the forgiveness of sin. If you believe those words, if you believe that Jesus died for you, if you believe that his blood was shed for you for the forgiveness of sin, you will be taking communion in a good manner, in a worthy manner, and you will be experiencing the presence of Jesus in your life. We have one more session to wrap up the ending of Luther's Small Catechism with daily prayer. We'll have that tomorrow.